Can you just put yes in the chat window if you could hear me? Or I say no. All right, thanks. So let's give a couple more minutes. We'll go ahead and start the live session. Good morning, guys. Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. Okay, so before other people join us, hey, can you check your microphone, Kishore? I think others are able to hear me. I'm trying to generate a video on YouTube link, so you guys can go ahead and use that. Let's see if that works. I'll just ping you the other link once it is up. Hey, yes. So this is the link. I'm gonna just put it in the chat window. Okay, see if that works for you guys, if you are unable to hear me. Okay. The other thing is, this particular section is going to be updated very frequently, especially the weekly live sessions. That's where you have the links as well. For the upcoming months, August, September, October, November, we have updated all the topics that we are going to discuss. And every month, this is one of the suggestions we got on a weekly session. So where we're going to discuss about what's exactly new for Office 365 developers. So every month, we will have a session specific to a lot of free. Can't see anything in the chat. Why? I pasted again, Suresh. Maybe you just join now. Okay. And that's the link. If you are unable to hear from the Zoom, so you can go to YouTube and watch it. So then, especially this August is going to be more on Office 365 groups. And then next month would be more on Office 365, Office Graph APIs or the Microsoft Graph APIs. And the next month, the October, it's going to be mostly on the Teams. Okay, then in November, it's going to be Azure Functions. So I just segregated a particular topic. So we're going to just get into those topics in parallel to what we are doing these live sessions, okay? If you have any topic in mind, just put your comments below. Then we will go ahead and add for the upcoming months. Or maybe we'll try to cover those things. If there is something new, then we are going to cover in this particular 4th week. Okay. Yeah, that is something I just wanted to cover, but yeah, let's get started. So today what we're going to do is, for the PowerApps, we're going to talk about some of the things that we need, especially for the PowerApps. If you're working for any organization, so we're going to talk about how you are going to enable the licenses and all those things as well. You need to rejoin, Kishore. So we will see how we could get started with PowerApps. Then like I mentioned, most of the organizations, if they are not using PowerApps or Flow, what they do is by default they disable those licenses. That is one of the thing that I have been worked as well. Like one of the customers, if they want to enable PowerApps and Flow, so obviously a lot of organizations are trying to analyze if these services are good fit. So most of the cases, what happens is in the large organizations, even though Microsoft releases a lot of new features, they don't introduce to the end users. So what they do is they just disable the licenses. So we are going to talk about how we are going to enable the licenses for PowerApps and Flow using PowerShell. If you are completely new to PowerShell, there is a recorded session that we did in the last weekend. So you can go ahead and check that particular session. Okay, so where we talked about how we could work with SharePoint Online, how we could work with Azure AD, okay, and also Exchange and a lot of other things. So that would give you starting point on how we could get started with PowerShell, especially with Office 365 services. Then what we're going to do is we're going to discuss some of the use cases. Yeah, thanks for whoever completed the form and submitted few use cases. So what we're going to do is all these sessions are going to be on top of different use cases we will be building. So which means every week I'm going to build a complete app which uses both the PowerApps and Flow. Then I'm going to show you how I have built from the starting. What are the different things we have used? So that way what happens is you will see various number of applications over a period of time throughout the course. Along with, we're going to discuss about what are the different components or different technical things that we are going to use to build those. So you will be learning how to build an app along with what is actually going behind the scenes, which I feel the best way to learn any technology, rather than just learning one part of it and we don't know whether we are going to use that particular section while building an app or not. Okay. But you guys always welcome to give a feedback on how we could run these workshops. Okay, it's going to be dependent on if there is something that need to be changed. Yeah, feel free to put it in the chat window, or yeah, let us know via email, whichever is comfortable for you guys. Okay, then if you have any questions, we'll take it. So this one is going to be for an hour, then we'll just take a break. Then after 30 minutes, we're gonna start Flow session. Okay, so I just wanted to make it separate so that whichever you feel comfortable or whichever you want to focus more on, you can join that and skip the other if it is not required for you. Then the other thing is the assignment. This is something we are going to do going forward. So what is this assignment is all about? There would be a specific task that will be given to you, okay, for that particular week, and you guys can go ahead and build it. Let's say you're comfortable with those assignments, which is very good if you are able to achieve it, because you're going to make a lot of progress if we do this on a weekly basis. Let's take the other scenario where you got stuck. Then what you can do is you can reach out to me, or we will have Office 365 group where you can just loop everyone and put wherever you got stuck. Then you'll get the responses either from me or anyone who is willing to help others. Okay. So that's how we're gonna do it. Yeah, just put your comments if you're fine, or if you're not comfortable, anything that you think we could improve. Yeah, just go ahead and add it in the comments. So the first thing would be how you could get started with PowerApps. If you're completely new about PowerApps and why Microsoft released PowerApps. Okay, so the first main idea from Microsoft is a lot of folks don't know how to develop applications pretty quickly. So if you talk about traditional SharePoint development itself, there are a lot of ways you could build solutions. You could use Visual Studio, you could use a lot of other technical skills, client-side object model, a lot of other APIs and everything. But especially the PowerApps is going to help if you are a technical person but don't know anything about the development, even non-IT people can quickly pick these skills and go ahead and build those apps. So you will see over a period of time, when we get into apps and see some of those examples, you will really feel that, okay, you don't need to have a lot of skills to develop. But there is always, like, when the application get complex, then that's where you might need help if you're just starting out, or even within the organizations, right? So most of the projects that I am working is more about, what we do is we set the platform for them, and then their business users, technical users, will go ahead and build it. And again, you might be thinking like, okay, if they get stuck, what happens? And that's where different companies follows different kinds of approaches. So they might have a community where they're going to help each other. So it varies from organization to organization. So first thing is how we're going to get started. So if you go to powerapps.microsoft.com, yeah, then that's where it's going to show you the things that you could get started with. So you can sign up for free, and there is a option to get started, right? But most of the times what happens is, you will have, if you're part of an organization, then you definitely will have license, right? Most of the organizations uses Office 365 E3 license, or maybe different licenses. So we are going to see that part as well. But if you're completely new to this, you can click on this get started for free. So what it's going to say is, you can go ahead and enter your work email address. Okay. So in this case, I logged in with Frank. So I'm going to say Frank at the email that he's going to use for the company, right? So let's click on sign up. So what it's going to say is, so you can see the screen here, you're using this particular ID, but you already have other Microsoft services already enabled. All right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to click on sign in. So here, now it says you already signed in, right? Now he can go ahead and start using PowerApps. But if I go to the backend administration side, and if I look at Frank ID, okay, so these are the different licenses. Earlier, this was not available, okay? The one that I was talking about, Microsoft PowerApps P2 trial, but now it's enabled because he went ahead and signed up for that particular option, okay? So this is one of the things that you need to be aware of. So if they go ahead and do it by default, so what happens is, they're gonna get this PowerApps Plan 2 trial if they do it by themselves. But if I look at this particular Office 365 Enterprise E3 license, for him, both the flow for Office 365 and PowerApps for Office 365 is disabled. Okay, so ideally what happens is, if you have an organization and if the users are trying to explore about the PowerApps and flow, you will not be able to stop them opting for trial licenses. Okay, it's not in your control. So they can go ahead and sign up for those P2 trial license. Okay, that is the first thing. So what we have done so far is, we saw like basic requirement how we could get started with, but we are going to enable using PowerShell for these licenses. So in this case, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, right, instead of any other tool. I would highly recommend you guys start using Visual Studio Code for building various types of solutions. So you could integrate with PowerShell. In this case, it's just an extension. So if I quickly go to Visual Studio Code, this is the one. So if you haven't installed it, so you could go ahead and install it. It's pretty a basic installation, and it's not gonna consume a lot of resources as well. Pretty lightweight. Okay, so I think it's opening. So that's where we're gonna do the PowerShell part. I'm gonna show you. Then we're gonna build a pretty simple app, but the main idea is explore what are the different controls that will get created automatically, or what are the options available. Then we'll go ahead and share that particular app, and we'll see how that can be shared within the organization. So let's say you are a business user who knows technical part and you know how to build the apps, but now at the end of the day, once you build it, you need to share with others who will be going to use that particular app. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So we have already done these steps now. We were able to sign in and start the process. So with respect to the Chris, and we saw that the licenses are not enabled. It was using by default P2 trial, which is valid for only a month. After that, they need definitely the license if they wanted to create apps. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to use Visual Studio Code and use the script to enable those licenses. So you might be thinking, so why not, Devendra, go ahead and enable these licenses manually? But I can do for 1, 2, 10 people. What if the organization has hundreds and thousands of people? So manual would be pretty cumbersome, right? So let's go ahead and do that particular step. So this is Visual Studio Code. Most of you might have seen. If you haven't seen, so what you can do is, if you are working for the first time, you can basically look for extensions. So if you see here, I have already installed it. But if you haven't installed it and doing it for the first time, you can actually look for the extensions. And if it is not installed, then it's going to show this install icon. But in my case, that was already installed, so that's why it's not showing anything here. But if I wanted to disable, uninstall any extension that I have installed with VS Code, I can always go ahead and do that. Okay. So what I did is I already created a script. Okay. So I'm gonna open that particular file. So it's a PowerShell script. Okay. And whenever we are gonna create scripts, you always go ahead and put proper comments, okay, which might be easier for whoever is going to manage going forward, even for you when you're going to make changes. And whoever is going to run this script, they will be able to see what exactly is happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just run this script first, then we will show you like how that is going to get enabled. So if you look at this particular script, what I'm doing is I'm taking the credentials of the user who is going to run, okay, and I am connecting to the services, and then once that is authenticated, I'm trying to get the default license here. Okay, this is the enterprise pack. Then what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get only set of users so that I can demo you, right? There is a CSV file called user list where I'm gonna populate the values. So let's go ahead and see here. So I have user list.csv. Let's open that. It's a basic entries of the user principals that we need to enable the license for. Pretty standard one. So here, if you see that, we have my name and Chris. There is one more user. There is the other user, Frank. So I can keep as same as like the same details, or I can go ahead and delete and keep only Frank. In this case, we are testing Frank, right? Or if you want to add any other user details, you can go ahead and add it as well. So that's the first part. So once I go ahead and look at this information, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to get the user principal name from this particular CSV file. So even though if I have any additional fields, I don't bother about all these additional fields. I can have 10 more fields. So what I'm trying to get is, I'm trying to select this particular field. Okay, that's what this line does. So once I have the users, what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to loop all the users that I'm gonna get, and for each user I'm gonna enable the license. So here each one of them is a service plan. Okay, and the service plan for PowerApps is PowerApps underscore O365 then P2, and then I'm gonna say if it is disabled, that particular service, I'm going to make the task enabled. So this PowerApps is a variable here. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for flow. Once that is done, okay, this is just an optional. Here I'm not disabling any other licenses, but if you want to do that, you can always do that. So this is the key one, that exactly enabling the licenses. Okay, set MSOL user license for this particular user. Then what are the license options? So in this license options, I am adding all the information for those details here. So once I do that, then it's gonna enable the licenses. And also if you see, I'm doing this right host for each and every user. So what happens is, it will log the information when you run the script. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put a breakpoint here. If you want to put a breakpoint, you can do it using F9. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to press F5 here. So you can see here you have all the options. Okay, now if you look at the terminal here, it says please enter your credentials, and then I'm going to enter the username and password. So here, okay, let's enter the password. Now, if it is successfully authenticated, then it is going to say the authentication is done. Then it's going to loop through each one of those users. So it says it hit the breakpoint already, right? So you can hover on each one of those items and see what exactly is happening here. So you can see the licensed users. I have 3 objects. Whatever the details that we have in the CSV file, so you can see all those information. So I'm going to say F10 here. It is going to get each user, okay, and there will be a log as well. You can see we are enabling PowerApps and Flow licenses for so and so user, okay, and we have variables. Then we were checking for the information about the licenses for that particular user. We're also validating whether this is an enterprise E3, right? We don't want to enable it somewhere else. That's what we are checking. Then we are also checking the service status for each one of those licenses. So you can see, you might be thinking how Devendra knows this PowerApps underscore O365 underscore P2. So for each service plan, there is a service name. So if you don't know about one of the licenses that you're going to enable in future, you can always run this script and debug it and get those values and put it, if you want to disable it or enable it within the script. Okay, that's how you'll be able to implement or extend the script that we have as of now. So I'll go ahead and so this is going to do for number of users for all the services. So instead of that, here I'm going to put one more breakpoint, then I'm going to press F5. So it's going to hit, and also here, okay, didn't hit, seems like it missed. Okay, but you can see here, it enabled the licenses for all 3, whoever the users that we have, right? Chris, and finally it says bulk enabling of those licenses for all the users. Now you can go back and check in the admin center if the license is already enabled or not. So here I'm going to cancel it. Yes, all the artifacts will be shared and it's going to be uploaded in the recorded details. So you guys can go ahead and check later and you could reuse it. So let's refresh it and let's see if it is enabled. So now you can see that both the PowerApps for Office 365 and Flow for Office 365 licenses is enabled for Frank, right? So there is, this is for a set of users. If you want to do, let's say you're testing PowerApps and Flow within the organization to check whether this is feasible to implement, that is where you're going to use this option. But there might be a case once you test it, this has to be used for entire organization, right? So that's where there is one more script which is for all users in the company. Okay, so what you're going to get is here you're going to get all users within the organization, right? Then from that particular user information, if it is already licensed user, that is important, then you're going to get the principal name of that particular user. Then you're going to perform the same steps that we have done. Okay, so I'm going to put both scripts later, upload it, then you can go ahead and try it in your own tenant and see how it's going to work. Okay, but yeah, try to use VS Code going forward. Okay, so now we have enabled licenses. That's the first step that we need to do, right? Now, there might be few things that you need to consider whenever you're working with PowerShell, especially running this particular script. You might end up into some of those common issues if you don't have some of the modules installed. That's where go ahead and watch the previous weekend session. This is some of the common things that you might see. This connect service is not recognized, right? So what you have to do is you need to go ahead and install the install module, then Azure AD thing. If you don't log in with as an admin, that's other things. So whenever you are installing something, run as an admin using VS Code or anything, then or even PowerShell, so then you'll be able to install those modules. So yeah, this is the required module for this particular script to be executed, MS Online, where we are trying to connect to those services and enabling the licenses. Make sure you are a tenant, not the tenant admin, in fact, Office 365 global admin. Then only you will be able to enable the licenses. Otherwise, you will not be able to do it. Okay, so once you run this particular command in your local machine, then just say like S to all, so that it will install all the commandlets for Microsoft Online module. Then you will be able to go ahead and execute the script that I have shown just now. If you don't have these modules, you will end up getting those issues that I have shown you before. Okay, so now Frank has license. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a very basic app and see what are the different things that are there in PowerApps. There are two ways to create an app. So one is you could use Web Studio. Okay, the other one is you could use desktop. So there are both these options you could use. I'm gonna prefer the Web Studio because if there are any recent releases, it's going to be available immediately in the Web Studio, right? So that's what my preferred approach going forward. But yeah, it's up to you if you want to use the desktop one as well. So this can be installed using the store, and you can go ahead and download the app. So in this case, if you see here, I have already installed the PowerApps desktop studio. Okay, so let me quickly show you how it looks like. Yeah, let's give a few more seconds to open it. But what I'm going to do is, like I mentioned, I'm going to use the web approach. Okay, so let's go ahead and so this is a section where this is being logged in by Frank, right? He already using or enabled this licenses. We have done it, but again, like we have shown, all users in your company can go ahead and build those apps. Okay, even if you don't enable the license practically. So if they open this web.powerapps.com, then they will be redirected to this particular web studio. Okay, so they don't have to go to here every time, the powerapps.microsoft.com, but they could directly use the web.powerapps.com. So here, by default, Microsoft has built a lot of apps that can help us to give a head start. Okay, so what we're going to do is we will see some of these apps while we are looking at the use cases that we are going to build. But as of now, I'll go to the apps here, and you have a few options. So here it gives me create an app, or I can import a package also. This is important thing when we talk about the life cycle or the app's life cycle management. I'm going to talk about this in the governance part or the administration part, why this is important. Because some of the organizations don't want to allow specific connectors. Okay, I have thrown you a new item. So what is this connector is all about? So you are always, whatever the application that you're going to build, there will be a data you're going to work with, right? And this data can be business data and non-business data. So what is business data? If you are working with SharePoint, so then most of the time, if your organization using SharePoint, whatever the data that they're going to use for the business will be a SharePoint connector. Okay, you're going to use SharePoint connector to connect to that business data. So maybe your organization is storing the invoices in a SQL database. Then that will be a business data. What is this non-business data? This might be your Gmail account. This might be your Twitter account. These are all non-business. It's your personal, right? It is nothing to do with your organization, okay? So whenever you want to connect to this data, you're going to use something called connectors, okay? These connectors will help to get or update or how you're going to communicate with various kinds of data you're going to work with. So if you are working with different types of connectors, talking about import, this is the default. If you see this particular thing called environment here, okay, so I'm going to talk more about the environments going forward, but this is the default environment Frank can use at this point of time. Okay, so whenever he's going to develop apps, if you remember the software development lifecycle, you're going to do it in the dev and test and UAT in prod traditionally. But if you look SharePoint online, until unless you have a separate tenant, you'll not be able to provide that. But most of the organizations use the same tenant. So what we do is we create a separate site collection, right? For providing what you call that isolation. So in the same way, PowerApps and Flow also provides these environments. Whatever the resources means apps that I'm going to create will be always reside in this particular environment. If I have multiple environments, then that is where this import and export will come into picture. But having said that, even if it is same environment, you could go ahead and use this particular option. Okay. When we talk about the application lifecycle management, about these apps and Flow, then we're going to get into detail about what are the different things that an organization need to look at in terms of the governance perspective, which is very, very important, right? If you have thousands of users, how are you going to manage what type of data they are going to work with? They don't want to work with business data, with non-business data and all those things, right? We'll see that. Okay, so talking about creating an app, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on create an app. And what it does now is it's going to take a couple of seconds to load all the resources. Then it will say start with whatever the data that you wanted to work with. Okay, it's going to ask you which country you are into. So let's go ahead and select one of them. I don't want any emails, so get started. So here you can work with Dynamics, OneDrive for Business, all these different types of data, right? SharePoint, Salesforce. And if I click on next, it shows these connections. This is what I was talking about. Connectors uses to make those connections with the data sources. Okay. And you have a lot of options here where you could go ahead and connect to different data sources. So as of now, what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and start with something blank. That would be the best option so that we can see how we could work with. But if you go ahead and use SharePoint, it automatically gives you some of those information. So we can do that as well. But to make it pretty straightforward for in this particular session, if you're completely new, it's better to use this option. So we'll go to the blank in the upcoming sessions. So I clicked on SharePoint. Now it says, it gives two options. You could use cloud service or you could use on-premises gateway. What is this on-premises gateway? This is for SharePoint on-prem. So if I select that, it will give me options. And as of now, I don't have any gateway, but what we are going to do is we are going to do this as well. And so I'm going to install a gateway, then we will connect to on-prem data. Then I'm going to show you how we could work with on-prem data. So as of now, I'm going to use this cloud service. I'm going to say create. So when I click on create, it's going to show me the options or what are the site collections that I have access to. Then I can go ahead and work with those things. But if you look at this one, you can see here, it automatically created a connection for me to work with SharePoint. So as of now, I don't have any recent sites, right? So what I can go ahead and do is I can go ahead and use one of the site that he has access to. So the site is this is the one, I hope. So let's go ahead and enter that. I'm going to click go. Okay, is it? Right, he does have access. Let's try that again one more time. Okay, now it works. Now, what it does is it shows all the lists and libraries that I have access within that site. So the PowerApps automatically manages the security behind the scenes, right? So here I can select any one of the list and get started with. So I'm going to use the basic leave request list. So let's select that and click on connect. Now it's going to load and show me some of the default screens that's going to create for me automatically. So while this is happening, I'm going to quickly show you how this leave request looks like. So it's a very simple list, okay, where I have the title, the manager, when would be the leave start date, end date, and the comments. Pretty basic one, right? So let's skip this. Now, if I use with the existing data, it automatically creates these 3 different screens, okay? Um, we could learn a lot with this particular simple app itself. Okay, so let's see this in action quickly. So I'm going to just click on play here, and if you see here, you have a search option. Okay, I can go ahead and search with the information that we have, and if I say holiday, so all this functionality works immediately. This is like a mobile app, right, which is done in what, few minutes or even few seconds. So it provides a refresh. If someone adds an item, you could refresh it, and if you want to add a new item, you can go ahead and add a new item here, right? So let's go ahead and pick a start date, and let's go ahead and add an end date, right? So this is not half day, so I'm going to click save here. So automatically you can see the new item got added, and I can also see the details about that particular item. Then if I wanted to edit, I can always edit the information. So pretty quick and easy. But if you see a lot of information you don't need on the display form, or maybe on the edit screen, or maybe even on the detail screen. So we are going to see and why this is showing the client's information here. It's not a user friendly. So we'll try to fix it going forward, but I just want to show you what are the different things that it get created. What are the sections that default PowerApps Web Studio looks like. So here, let's go ahead and select this particular screen, the default browse screen. So if I have this, when I see this browse screen, I have something called gallery. Okay, so gallery is like your data grid, where it's going to display the information about all the items that you have in that particular list. And this is the thing that is working, right? Or doing the trick for you. So on the left hand side, if you see this one, so we have a property called items, and we have something, a function which is doing or which is displaying the information that we have in the gallery. Okay, we will definitely go into details about what exactly it is doing. So if you look at this one, it is basically just get inside, leave about the sort by columns. So it's basically trying to filter the leave request. This is the data source, and where starts with the title. Whatever the title I'm going to enter in the text box, the search text box, which is here, right? And then it's going to display the information of the title, right? Or the other information. So then we're doing the sort on all those options. So that's exactly happening when you try to run here. So you have this search box. If you are going to type something here, I'm going to say new item. So based on that, it's going to filter the data source. So the data source, how I know the data source is leave request. So if I click on view here, I can see the data sources that are already associated with this particular app. In this case, that is a leave request data source. Okay. And if I wanted to, if I make any changes, if I add an item, if I wanted to refresh the information from the data source, I can always go ahead and do that. Okay, let's go back to the gallery. When I select the gallery, it shows a lot of other details as well. It shows the layout, how I wanted to display the information. So as of now, it shows title, subtitle, body. But if I want simply title and subtitle, it's going to just display only two fields. Okay, title, and here, this is why it is picking that client's information, right? This item.manager.clients. So within the gallery, you have these controls automatically for the title and subtitle. And let's change this one to title, subtitle, body. Automatically, you see here, it's going to add one more control. It's not that you could have only 3, If you want to go ahead and insert your own data card, you could always go ahead and insert that information about that particular list item if you want to show that in the gallery. Okay, and within the browse screen, there are a few more functions. This is the default one that we saw. So far we saw search and the details about this, but let's go back again. And I wanted to select one of them and show you what exactly displays on the left hand side and what exactly displays on the right hand side. So if you see here on the left hand side, we have on select. So whenever someone click on that button, that is what on select is all about, right? And it is refreshing the data source. And also on the left here, if you see carefully, this is a function. So by default, you have a function. Whatever the data source that you wanted to refresh, if someone clicks on that, you can do that. Okay, and there is one more or a few more buttons, right? This one, the sort option. So here, update context is also a function which is creating a variable or updating a variable called sort descending one using the option or the value that we have. So if it is ascending, it's going to put it in the reverse order. If it is already descending, then it's going to put it in the ascending. So it does exactly the opposite. If you see on the left hand side, again, it's an on select property of this particular control. If you want to see more details about that particular function, you can click on advanced here and look at what are the things that it actually works with. So you could add a tooltip. So you can see here, if sort descending one, this is a variable. So it shows sort list in a reverse alphabetical order. If not, sort list in alphabetical order. Okay. So on the right hand side, you could look at the properties and advanced properties as well. And you can change a lot of other information as well about that particular thing. And let's look at the new item action. So this one is again on select on the left hand side, but look at the function. Whenever you click on this, it's going to take you to edit form 1, which is this one. It's going to open this particular form within the edit screen. Okay, that's exactly it does. So you can have multiple functions. So you see here semicolon. So first it redirects to the opens the new form, then it redirects to the edit screen. So if I click here, see what's going to happen. You see that? So that was done based on the on select function that by default is got created for this particular button here. Okay, so why I'm showing this, you could end up working with multiple screens in your app, and if you want to do almost all these operations in many of those things, then you could basically reuse what is there already. So that is how we're going to do it going forward as well. So when I build an app and I'm going to show you what are the things we have done, then you could reuse those and build one more app that you guys will be thinking, or if you wanted to build one. Okay. And let's look at the edit form, what you have here in the edit form. So let's look at the cancel one. What it does, it resets the edit form. That means whatever you're going to enter in the edit form will be cleared, and it will go back from where you came from. So if I came from the new form, then it will take me to the new form. That is exactly the back function does. And also, all this time I'm showing on select or whatever the default property that is implemented for those controls. But there are a lot of other properties of each control that you could go ahead and modify it. And if I see the left hand side, whatever the things that has been highlighted, okay, in this case, if you see here, the highlighted ones are only the height and on select, which means In this particular app, we have used only those two properties or modified only those two properties, and we didn't make any changes or we didn't use any of those other properties of that particular control. So you can easily identify, okay, which one is being used for that particular control, what property has been applied, right? And if I expand the edit form, so you can see each one of them. Let me zoom a little bit more so that you can see it. Each one of them is a data card. Within the data card, you'll have different controls. So you can see a text box, you can see error message, you can see a data card here. This is the one that is actually getting the information or pushing the information to SharePoint. But this one is a label, again, the title. Okay, so within the data card, if you want to play with those things, you can always go ahead and change it. And when I select all these variables, here if you see, I have something called snap to columns. I can go ahead and put them in side by side if my form has a lot of fields. So you can see immediately how this is going to look like. You see this? Pretty quick. And if you want to do the same thing in SharePoint using custom coding, imagine how much time it's going to take, right? Okay. And at the same time, what I can do is, in the new form, I don't need to have created by, so I can simply select that, it's going to get high. Same with modified, I don't need to use that, right? So if you see now, by selecting those by default or after selection, those fields has been not available for the edit, which makes sense, right? And also if you see here, I have title, manager, start date, end date, half day. If you want to move these fields also, you can always go ahead and do that. All you have to do is select the card that you wanted to change it to and just drag and drop it. So you can see automatically here, half day got moved to here, and start date is showing up here, end date is showing up here. Pretty simple changes, but have a lot of impact on how these things are going to work with. And what I want you to do is, as an assignment, create a simple list, something like this. Now you have this already for you, like as a reference. Even if you're not going to create a new one, don't worry about it. Let's go ahead and create a simple leave request list in your site collection. Go to PowerApps, then try to create an app using SharePoint. Okay, what I want you to do is explore each and every screen and each and every element or the control that is being used on a default app that is being created. If you are able to do that in next 1 week before we start the next session, that is gonna help you a lot. So you go ahead and look at what is themes all about. What happens if I change a particular theme? So you see that automatically everything got reflected, right? And if I go ahead and look at various controls, you have a lot of controls as well. All I have to do is to learn more about this. I'm gonna just select that. If I wanted to learn more, I can click on it and it explains what each control does. But I don't want you to do that way as of now, because there is a lot of controls. Most of them, once you start using it, then you will understand why you need to use it. So what we are going to do is, we will try to learn about these controls by taking an app as an example. Then if we use it, then it makes more sense. Okay, for this app to achieve this functionality, I'm going to use this control. So don't worry about a lot of these things which are there on the toolbar. It's good if you have time, explore it. Otherwise, what I want you to do is create this app and look at each icon, what exactly it does, or the control, what exactly it does. Look at various properties that is being highlighted here and see what values has been set, and look at these properties and click on this play icon and see what happens. But don't hesitate to change it, break it, because you can always go ahead and create a new one, which you saw that hardly takes 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here for creating an app. Then, okay, I wanted to actually go into show you a few more options, but we will definitely go ahead and discuss in the next week. So what I'm going to do is, yeah, thanks for whoever is sent those the use cases. Every week, I'm planning to pick one of these use case. So if you have any app that you wanted to build, okay, go to that weekly live sessions. There is a link where you could enter the information. So you can start building an app along with me. Okay, so share the requirements as well. I mean, more details about that app that you wanted to build. You can parallelly build with me. Then if you got stuck, then we are gonna go ahead and see how we could solve that issue. So that way you're gonna learn a lot about PowerApps. So I'm gonna put each page for each of these use cases. Yeah, feel free to send me if you want to build the new ones. I'm gonna add the sections for those use cases as well. We will update the details about those requirements. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to populate the information about each app every week, how I'm going to design it and how I'm going to build it, what are the best practices that is being implemented in this particular app. Okay, if we are not able to achieve a specific functionality, what is the limitations that we have as of now? Let's say if we get into any known issues of these use cases, we are going to document it as well. So at the end of the day or at the end of the course, what happens is you will have 10 to 15 apps that uses both the PowerApps and Flow, which is using various kinds of functionalities that you could use it as a reference going forward when you're building new apps within your organization, or yeah, even for fun, if you want to develop something, you can go ahead and do it. And the other feedback that I got is we're not going to do just SharePoint. We're going to do SQL on-premises, SQL Azure, and a lot of other data connectors. But again, I will try to emphasize more on the business connectors rather than just the personal ones. So we can always do that as well. I'll show you one of the quick samples using the personal connectors as well, which we use commonly pretty frequently. Okay, so I have already told you the assignment. Assignment for this week would be submit the app that you wanted to build, even for a fun, whatever the idea that you have, that's okay. Even if it is not possible in PowerApps, we'll try to build it whatever is possible in PowerApps. So that way you could identify the limitations. The other one is create a basic list and explore what are the different controls that app consists of and what are the different functionalities are available for each control. So that's the assignment for this week. If you got stuck, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. Any questions? You can put it in chat window, or I think given that we have only a few, I'm going to just promote each one of you so that you can go ahead and speak if you want. So I think that would be much easier. If you have comments, you can unmute and speak if you want. No questions, no comments. Interesting. So are you guys fine with the approach that we're going to take going forward, or no? So you can say yes or no as well.
Yeah, the approach, whatever you said, it is good.
Okay, thanks.
So that will get a hands-on experience.
Yeah, sure.
So we will be able to get the these apps I mean, we'll be able to create this app in the free license, whatever we created on Office 365 free trial.
Yes, you will be able to. So what happens is when we try to sign up for it, it automatically adds PowerApps P2 trial license. So which means you could go ahead and create apps. So no one is able to stop, even within your organization.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Devendra. And apart from this, just I have a small doubt on the search feature. So, it is the correct time to ask?
Yeah.
Yeah, in SharePoint 2010, the out-of-box search feature will be there, right? So, whatever the refiners we need, there is the XML, right? In SharePoint 2010, filter criteria, there will be the XML, right? So, in that, what I got is there are the 3 columns we are using, and I found the mapped data, something managed data will be there, right?
Okay.
So where I'll get that managed property from the SharePoint site collection, will I be able to see that?
Yeah, if you are using SharePoint 2010, then you have to go to Central Administration and see those managed properties. Only in SharePoint Online, you have those managed properties exposed at the site collection level.
Yeah. I watched your last video on the enterprise search, so I got in SharePoint Online.
Okay.
So if I want to build the same thing in SharePoint Online, so actually what happens is there are the 2 columns which is used in 2 to 3 lists in SharePoint 2010 with the same name, with the same internal name.
I don't think you will be able to create a column with same internal name. It should be different.
Yeah, that's what I was also wondering, but I can see those. Those are not the side columns. Those are the
Can you
list
do one
columns.
thing, Alekia? Probably just send me a screenshot of that particular scenario. Probably I can see if that is expected. I don't think it should, but yeah. Especially if you are working with on-prem, given SharePoint Online, there is a tool, search query tool, if I remember correctly the name. So what it basically does is you can debug the queries. Whenever you debug those queries, if you have managed properties and crawl properties and you're trying to map them, most of the times what happens is those will not populate the data properly. So using that tool, you can debug. Okay, that would be the best way to go forward if those fields are not populating the information.
Okay.
Yeah, but send me a screenshot. We can definitely have a look at it.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can put a SharePoint school email, the one that I used to send emails to everyone. So use that ID. So what that ID basically does is it uses Office 365 group conversations. Yeah, that is something we're going to talk in the evening, 7 p.m. But so what it does basically is it's going to send an email to every one of us within the group. So then if someone knows about it, they will be also able to help you out. So that's how I want to build the community going forward within SharePoint Journey Club. So that if you are good at something, you can always go ahead and share that expertise with others. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions from anyone? All right. If you don't have any questions, let's meet at another half an hour about flow. So let's take a break. We'll meet again in 30 minutes. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.